So we'll start. Thank you. So finding a quorum, we'll start the meeting. And we'll begin with the minutes, and unless there are any edits to minutes, we'll put them on file. Hearing none. Catherine, would you put those on file, please? All right. So we have a few items on the agenda today. I'll share my screen since that would be. Share desktop. Hi, Cecilia. Nice to see you. What is that saying? Oh, let me get out of it. You guys don't need to see all my real estate, but I'm trying to find for my mom and dad, so I'll just minimize that. Unless, of course, you have an apartment. If you're living a rent, it has one floor. Yeah, 2 bedrooms. No, where? Anywhere within the next 5 miles. Should we talk later? Oh, sure. All right, so our agenda, your minutes are covered. So start, we'll just go through the agenda first, and then we'll go into each of the topics. So I want to start with any feedback that we received on the climate action roadmap. I have some thoughts on how to handle that. We don't necessarily have to go through line by line. Second is, I wanted to share some public comments that came in on the Green Municipal Aggregation Plan. Give you just an update on that. We'll just scan through them. We've actually, the working group has already talked through all of these. I'll kind of skip to the headline, which is, it didn't change our plan. But if you want to see it anyway, I want to offer that opportunity to me. And then just wanted to see if we could talk a little bit about the solar bylaws that are going before the planning board. And Marty, you might be able to bring us up to speed on that, and there might be some topics we talk. So these are the items. We'll see how fast we get through these. So beginning with the climate action roadmap, I think I've heard from a couple of you the feedback that you've collected from the working groups. Is anybody still working on that, or have I received everything that I'm going?
I just sent one thing today about adding a word in there, which makes sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I saw Eleanor's comments were
Yeah.
very thorough.
Yeah.
And very much appreciated.
Yeah.
Very unsurprising that she had very
I
thorough
know, exactly.
and very high quality comments.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
I just sent you off of the last,
You did.
and 10 minutes ago.
10 minutes ago. All right, excellent. All right, and
Just in time.
was there anything major?
Nothing major, some wording or spell, instead of saying case, spell it out, a couple little things
Right.
like that, that just to read better. I think.
Good.
And then, yeah.
And I don't know if you brought this up, but we did talk about it in another meeting, which was social cost of carbon.
Yeah.
Should we be adding that as an action for governance? Was that discussed at all in your working group?
We didn't.
Okay.
That
All
time.
Okay.
I can ask that
Okay.
of the group.
All right, we can probably follow up on that in a second. Hank, I did get all your, or was it?
No.
No, Gabby, you
Yeah.
sent me a
Probably
bunch.
by Hank. But
Right,
yes,
yeah,
yeah,
the two of you worked together to correct people's titles
Yeah.
and spelling of names from the town staff.
yes.
So I'll make sure all of that gets corrected. Was anybody missing from that list besides Gabby?
Oh, I was gonna say, I wouldn't know if there was.
I think you squeak in under the wire here.
I
think
think
we have
you're
a
right.
problem here.
I think she has to be listed.
Yes, there you go. So I've got those comments. Nick,
I had no feedback on.
no feedback.
On the energy,
It's just perfect the way it is.
I mean, I've been making my comments, so maybe that's part of it.
Yep. Great. Kevin, I know you have strong feelings about the wedge draft. And I've been thinking about that. Have you been thinking about it? And if so, have you come up with any alternatives?
Well, the addition of the business as usual forecast,
Yeah,
I think pairs nice. Honestly, and you added the percentages going down, and so that's the point you make,
yeah, okay,
I think it solves it.
all right, good. And Cecilia, did you have any? No.
Stephen, the only question I have we had anyone actually wordsmith this document?
Well, the team at KLA did a lot of line editing, and we had one round of feedback where we gave them that back. My intention was that this process that we just went through is that opportunity.
Yeah,
So if you have any remaining wordsmithing, I'd say get that into me this weekend.
but we haven't added one intentionally for the sole purpose period of going through it.
So maybe we can talk about like what goes from here, because obviously, before we do, Paul's here, so I'll ask Paul.
Sorry.
It's all right. Happy New Year. Quick question for you. We were just talking about the feedback on the climate action roadmap. I can't recall if I received an email from you yet. Have you sent something?
Yeah, I sent you
I probably got it. I probably got it.
Since it's right after the meeting or something.
Okay, so then it was probably just that period of time when I was a little busy, so I'll go back and look at it and I'll follow up with you if I haven't.
I'll make sure that it's.
Okay. And Joe said Joe, by the way, Joe has stepped down from the committee. Has he contacted the select board on this?
No.
Okay,
That's too bad.
so he is moving to Boston.
Oh,
So it sounds like it's imminent, or maybe it has already happened. I'm not quite sure. I did reach out to him to see if he'd be coming to this meeting, but he is not. So we'll have to figure out another time and place to thank him for all of the contributions. that he made.
Yeah.
But that means we have 2 vacancies.
Who's the other vacancy we haven't said? Oh, what am I missing?
Natasha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, Conservation Commission and
We're
Planning.
supposed to have a
So
Concom.
we never got any back from.
I can't remember who it was who was the Conservation Committee delegate who completely left COMCON in the lurch. Do you remember who it was? Who was that?
Well, Peter left the Concom. Was it me? Are you talking about me?
Went and got elected to a different board. Okay, so we do have 2 and, obviously Joe made a lot of great contributions over the last 2 years, and we want to make sure we recognize that. So, Joe, if you're listening, thank you. You're probably not listening. Well,
He is somewhere he's listening, Steve.
that's right. But we should at least have it reported in the minutes that we appreciate the contributions that Joe
We'll do
has
that.
made. Great. So as far as next steps on this, I've already been kind of putting some of these edits into a master document that we need to send back to KLA, who's going to be doing the edits for us. What I would entertain is a motion if you want to empower me to take all of your edits and do any additional wordsmithing as necessary and communicate that to KLA.
Can I just make one other
Yeah.
observation?
Yeah,
On almost every page, I don't understand why. Not every page. There's a random gray lines in the document.
okay.
And like, at first I thought it was a design element, and then I'm realizing like, no, they just seem to be
Can
everywhere.
you share it, Tammy?
you're looking at that's the power. No.
No, it's like, see all these random things. Yeah, right, yeah.
Oh, are you actually an acrobat there?
Oh,
Yeah, they're on almost every page, and this, it kind of makes.
Oh, no, I can tell you what this is. Look, this is a slide deck that I copied and pasted into the.
Yeah, I don't
Blackboard packet.
see them in
Okay,
the
yeah.
actual
Alright, so it's not print.
document, no.
That's my poor copy and pasting
Okay.
skills in the select board
I
packet.
mean,
Thank you.
alright, and then the other questions did come up in the public hearing about adding metrics and.
Yes, so there's quite a few comments from Jackie DeWolf on metrics around transportation. And so I can take that into consideration on the feedback. There may be limitations on how much we can put in into this document. But there was also food came up, and I know that kind of falls into the waste.
Yeah.
But it's more than that, right? So we talked about diverting waste, food waste, which is half of the food problem.
Yeah.
The other half of the food problem is diet choices.
Mhm.
And I don't know if we deliberately steer clear of diet choices because it's,
I think we did.
That's the like our lane.
You
it's.
mean like shop locally or what is?
Well, shop locally,
And like
low
eat.
protein,
Yeah.
Eat less meat.
No, don't eat meat. Okay.
I mean, I
no
personally,
almond milk.
think it's highly important to talk about it as a community should talk about it and be into it, but I don't know how much would fly into the climate action plan.
What, you know, what's our role in it, or like, what's our
Yeah.
action item? Is it just awareness and training?
I think that's about all you could do, and it would almost be a governance issue, but it becomes so vague, like that, you know, support personal lifestyle choices that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. At which point that
Well,
becomes,
you could, it could be where Rachel was going, building awareness for the impact one's diet has on carbon emissions, right? Or greenhouse gas emissions. That could be sort of in the same vein as, you know, building awareness for, you know, choosing alternative forms of transportation or, you know, building, you know, going down the insulation, building efficiency route.
And I would keep it higher level, just building awareness about the ways.
I think that's
It's kind of like-
Choices, personal
it's a-
choices that impact.
yeah, because it could also be,
So-
you know, how you travel, how you dress. It's kind of almost a climate literacy issue
Yeah.
to say, personal choices.
I don't think that's what we were saying. No, I don't think this is a general build climate literacy. So if you look at the literature on greenhouse gas emissions,
Mhm.
food choices and food waste are like number 1 and 2 in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. There are potential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And it's the beef we eat, it's the land choices we make relative to the diets we make, it's the refrigeration along the way, it's the way we prepare the food, it's what we do with the scraps, what we do with the leftovers. Food is a huge bucket. Huge bucket.
No, but it's a tricky thing to put into, you know, at the very beginning. We had to realize, and we sort of cared and said, we're dealing with the local issues that were, you know,
Right.
and it's very difficult, and I think at this point, and this is where I'm a little skeptical, because it's a very real impact. It's an educational thing. But how do we, you know, where do we put it, and how do we phrase it, I guess?
Yeah,
And that's where I think it's almost the first thing is to make people, you know, sort of aware the way we need them, and others have tried with the Meatless Mondays.
right.
You know, start on that basis, and that becomes an awareness issue that. Is it part of this? Is it certainly? It's a puzzle piece,
Yeah,
very big one.
Well, I mean, one thing that I always thought was not per se missing from the plan, but missing from success of the plan is, you know, we as a society, you know, in our own household, what are we truly doing for our own lifestyle in general? As far as how we're embracing the environment, the climate, the environment around us, what are we doing ourselves? Is if all we do is, you know, we're putting heat pumps, we're doing EV, we're doing something like that. If the society itself doesn't embrace something within ourselves, then it's the success is going to be limited compared to what it could be. And that is part of, you know, that is part of embracing it with ourselves, as far as understanding what everything that we buy and the impact it has.
It's a behavioral thing. There was
Yeah.
I heard a thing on NPR this afternoon where they were talking about specifically getting people back on the T and behaviors around transportation, but it gets to also to Jackie DeWolf's comments about the bicycling, is that part of our maybe amorphous piece of this plan is influencing behavior so that people are thinking about climate impacts, bicycling or eating less meat or putting a sweater on, going, you know, in some ways back to the 70s of, and I don't quite know how to phrase that. And it's a missing component. Is it a governmental thing? Is it a community thing? It's certainly,
I think one of the things that some of these things are attacked is sort of indirectly, so the co-benefits of a lot of these things. So if we're talking about food and altering people's diets, you're not spending so much time hammering their, you know, issues on greenhouse gas, you're talking about the health benefits,
Yeah.
like eating better diet. or more active transport versus passive, and so, some people can be approached in different ways. I think there's ways to do that, and it can be successful. Departments of Public Health get involved in this.
Sure,
I
exactly.
was thinking about that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, exactly, absolutely.
And I think Jackie's points are well taken. In our program, we didn't really have a metric at all set up for bike or active transport, and we just missed it,
Yeah.
I mean, so it can be added in. We
Yeah.
had one in our form that we did with our subgroup,
Right,
it just never made it into the final document.
Yeah.
And so I don't see any reason why we can't actually do something that indicates a metric that we consider that important.
yeah,
I mean, one thing that was great was that we had so many people, a number of towns before us doing this, and so we're following a lot of that was going on.
right.
And so that was great, but part of the reason we missed that perhaps had to do with the fact that we were following some of the towns kind of where they were, and I think that might have been one reason why, again, we can add something later on, that might, again, one reason why we might have missed that aspect of it at the beginning.
Rachel, where are you kind of thinking right now? Do you think we should try to add something or?
I mean, it sounds like you have a perspective on how important it is on the overall success of, that I don't know much about. Overall success of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but I'm looking at where we identified as a group 6 areas, right? And this
Right.
was not one of them. I mean, to me, is it something that we add, or do we build it into governance for now, or is it public health? Maybe it is.
Is it a separate,
Is it become, I mean,
know.
part of this is that it will be, we have to decide, is it really relevant right now? Do we think we have some actions that we could take in the next
Yeah.
year?
Well, with public health and healthy lifestyle.
It could fit under government 1.2, enhanced climate literacy and leadership among Needham's residences and businesses.
Okay.
I think that's the best
Yeah,
place for it, is because which we could give examples. Spell out choices that help people become aware of the impacts of their choices in transportation, food.
Yep,
This keeps it a
product
little bit
consumption.
higher level. This is just about, right, the strategy to engage
Yeah.
community members. I don't know, we have to spell it out. But again, this is a living document. If we think that if we learn of, innovative ways that people are tackling this, or that we could do that with the community, then we add a whole new section,
Yeah.
right? We can say this is rising to that level.
And it kind of, I think, puts a placeholder for action by community members and community groups,
right.
which we could.
Aside from education, there's probably very limited impact we could put on this. I mean, maybe you could say that the school lunch could be, that they add a carbon footprint component to the evaluation of food, which might lead them to make more purchases that are not burgers every day. And it's
That's
certainly,
interesting.
yeah, maybe not far, from far. So if you guys want, what we could do, what I was gonna recommend is that so I can compile all the edits. If you want, I can do some research on this. We're not gonna have a chance to meet on this again before we have to get KLA. So if you're open to proposing that I take the lead on this, communicate it to KLA, there's a limit in terms of how much change we can ask them to make, right? But we can't add a new section.
Right.
So I'm thinking at most it's one action.
Yeah.
It feels like a poll. I think Mary Ann brought that up in the select board meeting this week. It feels like a miss. So I could try to address that by putting pretty high level action around awareness of food choice.
Yeah, I think if we're doing this from the beginning, we would have had a section. And it would have had much more related to lifestyle and choices and all the information about our choices and the impact it has.
Right.
A lot of the dietary aspect of it, but we're not there right now. We are where we are now.
Yeah.
So we can do what we can now and then do something later, have something later on talking about this.
So I think I
But
need
it seems most naturally under that
governance.
I
would say climate literacy is really, because it's a literacy about increasing literacy about your choices.
Okay.
And I actually think, Gabby, not to put everything on you, But because of where we are, but that could, with what you're doing, that could be something related to your sustainability aspect and communication, education. That would probably fit perfectly under some part of your efforts.
Yeah, I mean, I think the climate literacy is a natural fit. I think we got at least one comment that was something along the lines of like support more information around reducing individual carbon footprints and household footprints. So I think it's like a pretty easy fit in there.
I mean, when people, if they actually pay attention to what their choices mean, the carbon footprint, if they really looked at that, it might hit them a little bit more. I mean, maybe some or maybe a lot of us have seen that. You can appreciate that, but a lot of people just kind of, they haven't seen it at all, no choice, or it just flies by them.
Yeah.
And if we're driving it home a little bit more with some real visuals.
Exactly.
Visuals, maps, education.
Exactly.
No,
Awareness.
Yeah.
All right, so is there a motion to empower?
I make a motion to empower the chair to make amendments and additions to the climate action roadmap.
related to the healthy lifestyles.
Across the board.
Well, across the
Oh,
board,
across the board, okay.
yes,
Okay.
as
Compile.
Okay.
compiling the comments. It's the wrong motion. Compiling the comments and the discussions of this group.
Second.
Okay, so roll call vote,
Yeah.
Rachel, Paul, Kevin,
Yes.
yes,
Yes,
Artie, and the chair votes yes.
anyone online?
No, no, I think we're all here. All right, so we'll get that in. Cecilia, can you tell us, is KLA standing by? Do we need to give them a notice? You know, is there a date by which we need to get this to them? When did we extend their contract to?
Through the end of the middle of March,
Middle, all right,
yeah,
all right, so my goal would be to try to get this to them probably in the next week.
yeah,
And we're gonna probably have one round total with them, right? That's what we left it at.
Yeah.
You know, they'll send us a revised draft.
Can I just make one other comment?
Yeah,
Okay, on the CAPC priorities for the coming fiscal year, we checked off the first two
yeah,
and in process the second two and the 2 and 4. I would imagine perhaps the casual reader would say, great, we're done. I maybe might suggest, and what's next on deck? If you had one more thing that like coming in 2020, I don't know, but it sounds like, I think you would just read this and say, oh, great, we're done. That was fun and spectacularly easy. And so I think maybe you want to just say there's more coming.
Okay.
Something.
Which ties into the, highlighting the priorities
yes,
of the action plan, so, which would then
yeah,
feed back into the PowerPoint.
This is a living document. I think even next year, this group will keep making recommendations to the select board.
Agreed.
So,
agreed.
Hopefully, great exists.
yes.
You're talking about if he's still alive?
All right, so we'll go to the next item on the
Real
agenda.
quick.
Yeah,
speaking of the select board, Kate wanted me to find out do we have a timeline for when we want the select board to vote on the climate action plan officially?
And so you do the originals. Sicily now.
so I assume you guys want to wait till the final draft exists to vote on it, huh?
I saw on Facebook some Green Needham or someone posted some Facebook, I believe they might have posted a link to this.
They put a link to the town's website
To the,
and the notice of the public meeting,
oh, I thought it was a link to the actual.
the draft.
The draft is on
It
the
was,
town website.
yeah, there's a link to our draft
Yeah.
on the town
Yeah.
website. So I think we probably need to consult with KLA to find out how quickly they can turn it around. So let's assume that I get it to them by the end of next week.
Okay.
We're probably into mid to late February, right? Before that they would be able to turn it around. Depends on how much. there's like, remember there's some changes around the icons that we were concerned about. Those are the types of things that I'm a little bit more concerned. That might take them some
Yeah.
time, and I'm also worried about how much of our budget we may have.
Okay.
So, I'm gonna try to be very prescriptive with the changes.
Probably like March-ish.
Early March.
Yeah.
First up.
Which would put us into exactly 2 years, which I've heard before, everything in town government.
We've been doing this for 2 years.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
It's a lot of
Feels
work.
like yesterday, right?
A lot.
I take that as a compliment. Did you feel like the time was flown by?
This is where we queue up, time of your life.
Right.
Barbara Streisand or something like that.
Yeah.
Birthday party.
I gotta find the document I was just looking for. Where'd you go? Oh, here it is. So I said I'd like to show you some of the feedback we received on the municipal aggregation. So this has already been discussed. We've already gone through this. But there was a range of feedback. There are certainly people such as Mr. Bagwell here, who is interested in seeing the Needham Basic Plan become the developed plan. It would likely be the lowest rate. We don't know that for sure, but it would likely be it.
Isn't ours gonna be an opt-out plan?
So we'll have 3 tiers.
No, I know 3 tiers, but opt-out means that
But-
everyone by default is.
He uses the word opt out here. Yeah, this is,
This is what it says opt-in.
yeah, he's got some misinformation there.
By law, it has to be an opt-out.
Yeah,
Plan.
by law, there's no way to make it an opt-in. But I think what he's saying here is that Needham Basic would be even more cost advantageous if it was the default instead of the one you have.
You have to
choose.
opt into the basic.
Right, so our standard plus, there's still to be a standard plus, which is renewable portfolio standard plus 5-10%.
Or plus some percent.
Plus some percent, right, plus some percentage will be the default. And then you can choose either to opt up to a higher level
Mhm.
or to go back down to the state minimum. And this particular person was asking that the state minimum one be the
What do you mean by state minimum?
renewable
So-
portfolio standard, the one that matches the renewable.
Oh,
portfolio
okay,
standard.
okay, not minimum price, minimum.
The minimum amount,
amount.
minimum
Yeah.
amount
So
of
basically do
renewables.
nothing, is that
That's.
To match Eversource.
Yes,
basically.
yeah.
But it's not nothing, because it is actually a feature of the law that you could just negotiate bulk purchase of electricity on behalf of your
so that's
residents
how they're asking.
and bring the price below the Eversource rate with the same amount of renewable.
Yeah.
That is an option of the plan.
Uh,
That was not the
But you never
recommendation of this
promise.
committee.
They're always careful not to promise.
Yeah, right. So this was not the recommendation.
Well, that would not meet the goals of reducing greenhouse.
It will
gas
not
emissions.
meet the goals.
But we
We can't
have
do
that
that.
option as a, for people who are cost conscious.
Sure.
Right. There were some discussions about the source of RECs, class 1 renewables, and our understanding is in the RFP that we put forward for the consultant, that they're going to try to focus on class 1 renewables, class 1 being New England. And we know that they're New England, we know that they're solar, they're not waste incineration. Right?
Or non-nuclear.
Nuclear is not class 1.
Non-nuclear, so basically solar, small scale hydro, wind. If we ever have tidal power.
Yeah.
Geothermal.
Geothermal.
But it won't be a wood-fired power plant, waste to energy, nuclear, Hydro-Quebec.
Right.
What are they asking for?
Well,
This
they-
person was the one who was asking about the focus on the RECs. And it's specifically asking that there be no negative ecological impact on agriculture, forests and wetlands. Now, the DOER does have guidelines. It says when you put in renewable energy, you should try to avoid disrupting wetlands or forests. However, there's state law, Dover Amendment, that says that solar installations that are needed to meet the state goals of greenhouse gas reductions have privilege, so you can't block them. So there's not anything that in the contract we can do that says, do not disrupt forests, do not take down trees. In practice, there was one town that tried to block a road that went to a commercial solar farm. And the state Supreme Court struck down that and said that it's protected by the Dover Amendment. So we have really no say on what and where things are built. We can just say we want class 1 recs and hopefully they'll be offshore, or hopefully they'll be in areas that, you know, are unused farmland. We had some very positive comments, you know, excellent, let's do it. JP Mita. This is a particular person who wants to opt out already, so this is something that we may encounter. There is no plan today, there's nothing to approve, there's nothing to opt out of. But what was communicated during the meeting with the town manager was that we are going to make sure that we're blanketing the town with information on how the program works, how to opt out. You know, it'll be in every public building, it'll go to multiple mailings, there will be websites, there will be signs in public spaces.
Do we know, or we must know, what happens to people that have already chosen a third party
So
supplier?
you
You're
can,
not included.
but
unless
you can opt in.
Yeah, you can opt
You
in, but
can
they're not gonna be
cancel, but
automatic,
you're not,
not
Do
automatic.
we
No.
have any idea of how many people that is, or?
We don't know, Eversource may know, but when we get to the bid process, that's when they start to look at those things, and the bidders use that information to identify, you know, we think we can get this many people to buy that product, therefore here's the price we're willing to pay.
and they get a lot more data, and they'll have the breakout on the residential versus commercial customers who would be enrolled by default.
And certainly there'll be plenty of third party suppliers or people at this point that would probably be, that perhaps would benefit from this versus where they are. Because it happens all the time.
But what-
Suppliers.
We've seen in other towns, and this is going back to something Stephen said before, that when an aggregation is in this gestation period, the third-party suppliers come in
Sure,
like shark smelling blood,
Sure,
and they start, you know, they
Sure.
come up with
sure.
misleading names
Sure.
and
Yeah.
start trying to snap up people
Yeah.
so that they won't be automatically
Sure.
enrolled.
Right,
Makes sense. Makes sense that they do that.
And we can't say to, you know, because of the vague time frame, we can't say to somebody, yeah, you're good signing a 1-year contract or a 6-month contract.
Well, I mean, they'll get mailings and or whatever we're putting out that'll have something clear that says, here, get it for this rate.
yeah,
They'll have that.
the town has stated very
Yeah.
plainly,
Yeah.
they are going to blanket.
Yeah.
But I'm saying in the interim, and that's one of the,
Yes, and this is one of the questions that I've had with some of the other, like Green Needham has some information on its website right now. Are we, through the good intentions of the community organization of publicizing this, opening up opportunities for predatory behavior of third-party companies?
I think once it gets filed, that's when the predatory companies will
All right,
see it, because they look at the DPU filings and see, you know,
I'm saying by us communicating it to the general public, which today doesn't have a lot of notification of it, are we opening the door to confusing them because we've given them, we're giving information and there's nothing then for them to do? And then all of a sudden, the companies come in and they say, hey, you saw that information that came out on
we
that?
can informally ask Power Choice.
I think it would be a good idea, just to see.
I'd be willing to.
Yeah.
Just ask
That'd
them,
be great, yeah. Are we prematurely?
yeah, or are we premature and what's the best way to do this?
That's what I think. we
Yeah,
need.
I agree. I agree there could be negative, some negative ramifications to thinking people it's right now, it's right around the corner when it's not.
Right,
Yeah, absolutely.
good,
The
Gabby.
information on the town website though, so. That was my understanding at least, is that information about Needham Power Choice is gonna stay on there, even,
It has to.
even during that period when we're waiting for a response from DPU,
That's right.
so.
Can we have something that says, you know, during the discussions with Mass Power Choice, we've talked about how everything they have will have the town
Branding.
branding, have the Needham Power Choice branding,
Mhm.
and we have a logo, and sort of to say, well, this is what it will look like.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, it's a good question.
Techno substitutes.
That, I mean, that's part of my concern is that, Needham has a website and needs to have a website by law,
Yes,
right? The more websites that have information about it, the more potential for confusion. And we should have a single source.
yes.
Now, I'm not saying that that's definitive, but I'd like to get Mass Power Choice to give us some information. whether or
I'll
not
reach out to
This is the best.
them
practice.
on the best practices during, because their discussions with us, with the working group has been, this is the fallow period.
Right, I'm thinking about this from a marketing perspective. From a marketing perspective, if I'm a company and I have a campaign. And anybody else wants to like put information about my campaign without my permission. I would send my lawyers after them, because I don't want anybody getting confused about what the message is. And so I'm not saying we're in that scenario, I would like to see Mass Power before it give us some information on whether or not. We need to tamp things down and we're ready.
Is there gonna be any statement giving any type of realistic date when this is?
We don't have one.
No.
No, I mean, 2 years off, 3 years off.
No, I-
It goes into it's a ship in a bottle, or
Okay, so this,
letter in the bottle.
so there could be a statement that says, we don't know when it's gonna be, we don't know when.
That's what.
that's what we've
That's what
said,
we're-
basically.
We don't know,
in the-
or know when.
Yeah,
Does
Not-
that means something.
there are still proposals at DPU that were sent there 2 years ago.
Great.
3 years ago. So are they getting their act together and they're gonna clean up their backlog? We don't know. All we know is that right now they have backlogs.
Just, I remember when this came, I saw, something came out, it was a month ago, whenever it was, a month and a half ago, certain, when something from fragment of something started coming up, and people said, oh yeah, this is great, Newton has this is wonderful, and people are thinking, oh, that's wonderful, no, we're years away,
Right.
it is gonna be wonderful, when it's here, but it's years away.
And as one of the previous comments showed, somebody heard through the grapevine that it was January 24 and wrote to say, I want to opt out.
There you go.
And I think one of the things with these comments is that there clearly gives us an idea of where those who've heard of the plan think there could be more communication.
That's right. So this comment here talks about solar net metering and what its impact is. We don't need to answer this question yet, but it will be answered very clearly when we get to it.
It doesn't have as far as I know, it doesn't have an impact on that.
Doesn't it, but some people are asking, what rate am I getting net metering at?
The only impact that it could have is the projected statement as far as the economic offset.
That's what
With
they're asking.
normal utility rate escalators going on.
That's right. So that's what we need to be able to answer. There was, who's paying for this? It's not being paid by taxpayers, it's being paid by as an adder on top of it. And I think those are the big themes. I don't see anything that's different.
Couple of questions. Somebody went deeply into the woods about Rex.
Yeah, that was Joe Matthews went into the source of Rex. And then just some nitty gritty wording in the plan from Franklin Gold. But he also talks about net metering. So that's that. I mean, we're, as I mentioned, there's a working team that's focusing on this. Gabby is going to be inheriting the reins of this going forward. He's been working with Miles Tucker, who has been the person on the lead of this. So All right, so that we're actually speeding through this. So this gets us to our last topic of the day, which is the solar bylaws. I was wondering if, Artie, if you could just give the committee an update
So,
on
yeah,
where things are.
kind of give a rundown. So we have our version of a final draft coming up next Tuesday, I believe, then I believe at that point it'll go to the select board. And it's covering, so some of the topics are rooftop solar, as far in this case, businesses. In the past, it used to be a limited by percentage. Now it's not gonna be limited by percentage. We're gonna give no comment on the percentage amount and no comment on setbacks, because that's basically just good business practice and good business modeling and OSHA requirements, various things like that. We made comments about how high the solar can be off the roof. If the roof is tilted, pitched versus non-pitched, if it's pitched, how many degrees? And that was pulled from Natick, where they had something to the effect, like if it's less than 15 degrees, the solar panels could be pitched 3 feet if they're already under height of the district, or 6, where they can be 6 feet above the roof if they're under the height requirement. That's, and then if they're 15 degrees or greater, they can be, I think it's 3 feet tilted off. The fact is, I made the comment that we didn't really need it, but it's in there. But it's in there because some people thought it's better to have it than not have it. Then we talked about solar canopies in parking lots. We're basically just gonna say, they're allowed to do them, they just have to fit the same type of groundwater mitigation as before. There has any type of, impermeable surface or permeable surface, we still have to go by that guideline of what was going on before. If something, for example, if there are allowance for a parking lot and there has to be this much green space within it, now we put a solar canopy over the whole thing. Technically, we're saying, okay, move the green space somewhere else. Is this under the solar canopies? It's not quite the same thing. So we're gonna allow that. I'm gonna allow the ground mount solar systems. And at this point, there had been no regulation, not counting large scale solar. There have been no regulations for ground mounts at all, period. As far as I know, there's only been one ground mount in town, not counting the dump. And that was something when I was on the Conservation Commission, something came to us where ground mount going in. There's probably more than one, but Needham is not a big ground mount installation style community. So we're gonna memorialize ground mount. We're gonna define a small scale under a certain 1,500 square feet or smaller. And we're gonna say they can be in this case, we were gonna say in front yard, in backyard, side yards. And they can be at the normal setback that's in that district with no site review, nothing, they can just do it without any site review at all.
When you say normal setback, you mean for accessory structure?
No, in this case, for the regular dwelling itself, they could be at that with no review whatsoever, just go to the building department. Then I chimed in and says, well, we have to allow it to the 5-foot setback, because it would not make any sense. There's certain like northern part of the yard, you're not gonna want something 12 feet, 15 feet from the setback when you can go 5 feet. We are originally gonna have that as a site plan review for the site and backyards. Yesterday I got a call from Lee thinking that instead of the planning board taking on that site plan review aspect, sends it on to the zoning board of appeals, but they don't do site plan review, they do special permitting. So in essence, all ground mounts that are within the normal setback of that zone to 5 feet are gonna require a special permit, go to the zoning board of appeals. Any ground mount that's in the front yard by default is a special permit, goes to the zoning board of appeals. I don't expect that to be a detriment to anyone putting that in there. Is anything that they have to do to install the system in the first place, go in the building department, they're pretty much gonna have to have when
So
they.
then why have? Yeah.
They're gonna have, what they need for the zoning board of appeals is basically what
That's a
they're gonna
big
need,
turn.
what's that?
That's a big turn. And by the way, you and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna get shut down.
Well, I thought you were gonna send, be honest, I
Yeah,
thought you were
I
gonna
haven't
send
sent
an
it
email.
yet.
Yeah.
So solar is protected by the Dover Amendment.
Mhm.
You can't say no.
Mhm.
Cannot say no.
Yeah, yeah.
For a ground mounted solar system that's within your accessory structure. So what's the point of sending it to a special? permit?
I agree.
That's
I-
a discretionary.
No, I
That's a
agree, if we're not allowed to do
You
that,
cannot say
we
that.
shouldn't be doing that, I agree.
Yeah. So this is
I
a
agree.
disappointment. This is a major disappointment.
Well, no, I mean, it can be changed, be honest, man. So I throw this on you. I thought you were gonna send an email to them, and I said something,
Yeah.
I talked to Lee about this the other day, saying, you know, didn't you get something for Stephen?
No,
This
not
is
yet.
this is before the last meeting.
I mean, the
saying-
DOER regulations, the boilerplate is very specific on this,
Mhm.
very specific on
Mhm.
this. And they say the Dover Amendment protects solar. You cannot say no.
Mhm.
If it is within your accessory structure setbacks, you cannot treat it as a primary structure if it's on the ground.
Mhm.
It is not a primary structure.
I'm
You
fine.
can't pretend it is.
I'm fine, if we
Yeah.
definitely have some statement working knowledge, I'm fine
Yeah.
putting forward and saying, no, take it
This-
away, take that part of it away.
And my other concern about the planning board's deliberation on this is that it's been specifically about aesthetics.
Oh, I
And you
agree.
cannot regulate solar for aesthetics. You cannot do it.
So would the setback, I guess, two questions. Would the same, in terms of solar canopies,
Mhm.
do setback requirements apply in terms of normal structure, or how are they treated?
And well, as far as the parking lot solar canopies, no, accessory structure, 5 feet,
Okay,
5 feet.
and are all of these things, they have to go to town meeting? Are they going as one
One,
package?
one,
So,
one.
One package.
One
right?
package.
so they could be,
And so
Is it-
the problem with this is they're sending, if this does not get changed, they'll be sending a bylaw to the town meeting, which will then have to get changed on the floor, which is a very high bar for any bylaws. And if it doesn't get changed on the floor and it gets passed as is, as I'm hearing it now,
Mhm.
it'll get struck down by the state. Just like the ADUs did. And this is the planning board, I'm saying this to you right now.
Mhm.
Planning board goes over the line multiple times in regulating things the state says it cannot regulate.
Mhm.
You cannot
Mhm.
tell people who lives in their home or in an ADU, and you
Well,
can't.
we're not
tell
talking,
people they can't put
we're not talking ADUs here.
no,
I
but.
know, but my point
We're
is,
not
my
talking
point
ADUs.
is, there's an aesthetic element to the regulations.
Mhm.
Today,
Mhm.
those solar installations, those small solar installations
Mhm.
are accessory structures. They require a building permit, nothing more.
Mhm.
And now you guys are gonna be putting it into a special permit process. It's going to get struck.
I'm fine if we know that's gonna get struck down. I'm fine at our next meeting, if we know it's gonna be struck down, having some type of language where it's clear it's gonna be struck down, that we take that out.
So question, I guess, no, nothing about the planning board process or politics. Is it either possible to, are you sort of set as a board?
Yeah, when is the public comment on this?
And public comment's gonna be, at this point, it's going to be first part of February, I believe. I don't think it's gonna be the end of January,
And when's the next planning board meeting? And are you
Tuesday.
discussing this again?
Tuesday, coming up Tuesday.
Will you be looking at this again?
We'll be looking at it again, we'll be looking at quote, the final draft before it goes to select. Yes,
Is it something that has to be one package? Because in my somewhat educated opinion, it seems like the rooftop provisions, as you say, we're not a big ground mounted
yeah.
town.
Mhm.
There's a lot of rooftop potential,
Mhm.
a lot of parking lot
Right.
potential.
Mhm.
Can this be three things, three changes that,
Totally.
I mean,
so that if
the
one-
ground mounts could be broken out if
so
we
if
feel
one gets struck
necessary.
down and,
The ground mounts could be broken off if we felt necessary.
My preference is you guys take this solar small out. Leave it way it is, the way today, it's building permit only.
I'm fine with that as long as we have some language that says otherwise. That's what I need, I need some language that actually says.
says otherwise.
That
You
says,
mean the guidance from the state?
I need the language guidance from the state or actually, I thought Lee might have been talking to the town lawyer, but some guidance that says we cannot do it.
So I do have a statement from DOER that I can share, and I'll share that letter after this
Yeah.
meeting. It's not legal advice, but I think if between this statement and what you have in the boilerplate for the DOER solar bylaw guidelines,
Mhm.
I hope all members of the planning board read it
Mhm.
and digest it,
Mhm.
because otherwise we're gonna go into the same thing we've had with ADUs.
Right, if the court strikes it down,
I don't know if they strike it down like a
In
line item
pieces, or is it
veto,
all-
or if the whole
yeah,
bylaw.
is this
I don't know that. That I don't know.
Well, again, if we don't pull it out as a separate, if we don't strike it out, we could potentially pull it out as a separate item. If there's a fear factor going on, if we're not sure, we're really not sure.
Yeah.
So the other thing going on is, I'm sorry, Frank, you
Do
mentioned-
you, do you have examples from other communities where they put in language like that and that was rejected?
I would guarantee you, you don't have another community in the state that has put a small scale solar installations through a special permit process.
I guarantee we have other towns in the state though that says it has to meet the primary structure setback.
Do you have that?
I believe we had that. I believe there were.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
I think so.
Because I don't think we do.
I thought we did. I thought we did, because that's where Lee was pulling her initial language from. Scoping out the number of communities she had. She was pulling it from there.
Okay.
And then I said, well, we have to allow it to the 5 feet property line. We have to. There's no sense not to. And so,
I thought the language, because I talked to Alex and Lee very briefly about this week. I thought that they had kind of modeled the language off of Natick, who also was looking at the model bylaw that the state put out, but is that component?
some of it came from Natick. I know for a fact the roof 15 degrees or less, or 15 degrees or more language came from Natick.
Yeah,
I don't remember right now what else came from Natick.
But does Natick have solar on the ground or only on the roof? Because my
I don't
understanding,
remember what Natick says.
I thought they were taking the language for roof from Natick.
I
Not
don't,
the,
I
not
honestly
the
don't,
ground.
I honestly don't remember what Natick says
Yeah.
about ground right now.
Do they have ground as well?
I think so.
And do they have it by primary structure or by accessory structure?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. 'Cause
Anyway.
when it's on the roof, it
Anyway,
makes
some-
sense that when it's on the roof, it makes sense that the primary structure. But if it's in the yard on the ground, it's not a primary structure,
No, I can,
As long as it's less than 8 feet tall.
as long as it's an accessory structure.
well, accessory structures are at 12 or 15 feet tall. They're
They can't, I think it'd be up to 15.
15, yeah,
15.
yeah, technically, it can be 15.
But you're not gonna have a solar canopy on your backyard that's 15 feet tall unless it's
No.
on a garage
Not normally, no,
or a gazebo.
no, not normally. So the other thing, okay, so the other thing we're looking at is solar canopies around building mounts. Then we're looking at the thing that we had talked about. We're also looking at, we're gonna call them solar canopies over buildings, but only in the industrial center, square D, whatever it's called. And only in that area there. We're gonna allow solar canopies over the building itself. And the reason, I wish I brought some visuals with me, but they are pretty cool looking. What that being is that it's literally, technically up to 15 feet high, although most of them won't be that high. They can be literally going over the whole building.
Over the AC.
Over
units,
the
stuff.
mechanicals, right,
Yeah,
so right now.
over everything.
We have a 25%
Yeah.
roof coverage limit
Yeah.
for mechanicals, including solar.
Yeah, doing so.
Which means basically, if you have a commercial
Yeah.
building, you can't
You
put a
yeah.
solar installation up
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So this
that-
would allow them to put it
Yeah,
above the AC.
Yeah, so the roof mounted solar, roof mounted solar percentage is out the board. But then we're left with good business engineering practice as far as build bigger buildings 5-6 feet from the edge, walkways in between. Then when you look at that, that has a certain limiting factor as far as the amount of solar that can be accomplished anywhere in the building.
Yep,
Where the solar canopy, literally the whole building can be a solar,
right.
can be solar.
Can that be on schools?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. yep.
Well, actually,
Well, that's where it came from.
You restricted it to only,
No, but you already have it. in
You already
schools.
have it in the schools.
The language exists in our bylaws
Yeah,
for schools
yeah.
to allow to put the
but
solar.
not the additional 15 feet.
Oh, you mean 15 feet beyond the edges of the,
No.
Canopy.
Yeah,
Height.
can't be over.
I could be wrong, but when I read it, I thought you don't have a height limitation on those schools.
There's a 45-foot height limit on the school building to the rooftop.
But I think the solar is excluded from the height.
And then we're allowed up to 15 feet for mechanical and other,
Which this would be.
but it's 25% of the rooftop.
So they're taking the solar out of the 25%.
The solar has a separate limitation.
Which is what?
So you're thinking.
a certain percentage of the rooftop and then the setbacks currently.
Yeah, so, well, okay, I mean, on solar, we're redefining solar on a rooftop as, there's no percentage limitation.
Mhm.
And we're not giving any setback dimensions because that's engineering, that's an engineering
Okay.
aspect of it. So we're not telling what the setback should be.
Mhm.
So if the fact that the buildings are zoned to allow that style solar canopy, and it's mechanical, but solar is allowed to have no percentage limitation,
Yeah.
that may still allow for what you're thinking is there.
So I think what Hank might be saying is whatever you're doing in those commercial districts.
Yeah.
If they go beyond what we have in the school zoning right now, it doesn't go beyond it?
No.
Okay, if we could confirm.
Well,
it
heck, what do you have then? Tell me, make sure what you actually have.
I don't have it on top of my head.
I don't have, when I read it, I
Look
thought.
under exception in 4.1.2. No,
Well, no, I mean, it sounds like
We
it's there
did,
15 foot.
when building Sunita Williams, we had to go through a zoning bylaw change in order to get the 45-foot max.
Mhm.
But there is a limitation on the amount of coverage of solar. When we're looking at Pollard,
Mhm.
if we're gonna go for net zero, we're gonna have to do something similar to what you're describing.
Mhm.
The great advantage of not having it sit on the rooftop
Mhm.
is that you can then repair the roof, there are a lot of things you can do underneath it.
Right.
And it functions also as at least in the summertime, it allows breezes to go underneath it, and so there's cooling.
Well, the interesting thing about the solar canopy is that like solar panels on a roof, the shingles underneath the solar panels essentially almost stop in time. They almost stop in time. So the roof structure with this style thing
Yeah.
would add years of life to any type of roof.
Yeah.
Years of life.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's
So-
giving any type of living space out
What I
there,
can
but-
do is when I communicate to, the planning board concerns about the ground mounted
Mhm.
and the ZBA being involved for small.
Mhm.
Medium and large makes perfect sense. It just doesn't make sense to me that somebody in a backyard who wants to put 10 panels in their backyard, would suddenly be asked to go before the ZBA, where they wouldn't be asked to go for the ZBA for a shed.
Mhm.
Why is a solar any different than a shed? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Mhm.
So I'll communicate those, but I can also communicate that we'd like whatever affordances are being granted to the commercial rooftops in the commercial district,
Went to the school.
industrial district, that they be extended to the schools
Schools and
Oh,
town
town.
buildings.
and town buildings, yeah, okay.
And town buildings.
Well, okay, at this point, how it's worded, it's flat roofs.
Oh,
It's predominantly flat roofs.
But you could do it on Pollard.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the fact is most
Not,
buildings like that are gonna be predominantly flat anyway.
Yeah.
Most school
not
buildings will be
restricted to a
flat.
district.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, what we are doing, not counting what was already in the school language for school buildings. is We are saying the industrial center over the other side of 120.
Okay,
Well, I'll go grab my zoning.
Yeah.
Bylaw.
Again,
book, yeah.
predominantly flat buildings, flat
but
buildings.
there are, so besides school buildings, there's Jack Cogswell, there's the DPW building, there's the PSAB. There's a few other municipal buildings that potentially benefit if
Yeah.
we could say there's no limitation on roof coverage.
Is there a maximum megawatt output for canopy solar over parking lots?
No,
So there's no size limitation?
no.
Good.
No.
Because,
No,
Newman
I
would
mean,
be
the
the,
height was, the height is the minimum height of 14 feet, I believe it was. It was 14.
so you can drive.
Yeah,
trucks
makes-
underneath.
Yeah, because the ground mount, the canopies are gonna be angled, so that's be a minimum height.
Yeah,
Which who knows what's gonna be driving under the minimum part. Again, there has to be a setback, again, the groundwater mitigation aspect to it.
Mhm.
The impermeable versus impermeable, it's not gonna count towards impermeable, because it's already on top of impermeable. The fact is, solar is not impermeable anyway, it's permeable,
Right.
so it shouldn't count anyway. That is the main focus of what was going on.
Okay,
Here.
so there's good progress, I get frustrated sometimes with The intention of when the Climate Action Committee, transmitted this to the planning board, was to ask the planning board to loosen, to encourage, to write bylaws that encourage greater solar installation. We need more solar installation if we want to hit our goals, right? For the most part, it sounds like they're doing that, but in the small ground mount, they're going in the wrong direction.
I can't disagree with you, and one thing was that there's gonna be, it's a double-edged sword, there's almost gonna be none of them in town, period. Which, and then the statement back to me was then don't worry about it, just goes to the ZBA.
No.
Yeah, no,
Could be
that's
as of
not,
right.
it's not a
Don't
good,
worry
that's not a
about
good
it, it's
reason
as
to
of
write a
right.
bad
Yeah, I mean,
bylaw.
as far as going to 5-foot parking lane,
And-
again, if we're not allowed to do it, I love it, when you have no choice, it's wonderful.
Right,
If we're not allowed to do it, we're not allowed to do it, period. That's great, if that's the case.
Yeah.
I'm happy to have that.
good. Any other comments? So,
I'll just add that my impression from Lee was that she was still working on the language this week, so.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel
like wrapping it up.
Yeah, so I feel like if there was like some succinct suggestions, I think we could share those in advance of this.
Well, it's gonna be very easy to take out that special permit language within this. That'll be very easy to strike that out of here.
So, I mean, I don't,
Can we get
So I'm just saying,
suggestions?
like, if we could like put those together in a timely manner.
how about tonight?
Yeah, sure.
I'll do it tonight. I'll put something together.
I just think like the window hasn't really closed on
No,
that
no,
yet,
not at all.
and
No,
when I talked to Lee, it felt like she was still,
Okay.
they wanted to keep it moving, but they were still.
But you are having a meeting on Tuesday.
Mhm.
I will work on it tonight and I'll get it to them, no later than tomorrow.
Yeah,
morning, And I'll
I-
copy you on that.
Yeah, I thought you left me in the cold for a minute there, Steve.
No, I
I'm talking
was,
saying, Lee, didn't you receive this from Steven?
well, at the time, all I understood it was a site plan review. Right, the site plan review alone puts a lot of. a
Well, yeah,
burden
correct. It
on-
was only yesterday it came back and said, oh.
And you get rid of the
special
site
permit,
plan review and then you put a special permit
Yeah,
process.
special permit.
Which is
Yeah,
even worse.
yeah.
Because now it's discretionary and discretionary is definitely not allowed. Site plan review, in my opinion, and I think the state would probably agree. For somebody who's putting 10 panels in their backyard to go through a site plan review process. Why? What are you gonna ask them to do? And if there's anything that you ask them to do, like, for example, putting in the 10-foot fence. That could completely make the economics of
No.
the system untenable, which is where the state would strike it down. If you're making solar untenable by putting in these guidelines, like you can put screening on a medium or large residential because of the economic output is so high. So the impact of that fence you put in is low.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone had to do anything and they asked me, I'd just say put a 6-foot fence. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
That's fine.
But you're still talking about a few $1,000s for that 6,000.
Well, and I'm saying if they were going to, if they wanted to, don't bother going higher.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No.
all right. I think we beat that horse.
Artie, thank you for
Yeah, thank you for pushing forward on
a lot of process.
that. So, if anybody has any other topics you've actually got for our agenda, just open it up. I do have one question, and this is more for Kevin. Are we going to wait for the next charter on the Climate Action Plan Committee to try to fill Joe's and Natasha's seats?
Yeah,
Or,
we should be up to that, right? Where is? Sorry, when you guys time out?
March,
maybe time out in March.
March 22nd.
So we have one, maybe two more meetings before we're
Let's do that, do we or get
it's a recharter,
recharter it,
re-recruit,
right?
and then I think there's,
You're all back on, okay?
I think everybody should communicate to Mary Ann and Kevin if you feel otherwise.
Sure.
The expiration is, it looks like it's saying June 30th.
Oh, so we got more than 2 years. You can sit on your hands.
But it would be, in that case, would
But
it
we
be
should start now.
possible, but would it be possible to get someone to replace Joe?
It would be helpful, and Natasha, and the Concom.
Right.
Well, I think someone in the Conservation Commission, it would be useful Actually, does anyone know if there's still an opening on the Conservation Commission? Do you know? You don't know? At some point, there was definitely an opening. If there is, if anyone has any thoughts of ever wanting to do something very useful for the town, being on the Conservation Commission is one of them. If you're an environmentalist, be on the Conservation Commission. Absolutely.
And then get elected to planning.
There you go.
The power
It's the
to,
roadmap, Steve, it's the roadmap.
So reach out.
That's what Paul did. Paul Elphick did it. I said, Paul, if you can do it, I can do it.
So people wanna be on this committee, you know. Between now and June, so you see that better, those voices who are interested.
I would agree. I don't know how, this aspect of public government works, though. If you appoint them now, do they get 2 years or do they get 2 months, 6 months, and then they have to re-up for 2 years?
We could appoint and then they can just automatically. We can,
And then you go through the.
yeah.
I guess we're all appointed anyway, so you
Yeah.
can appoint us for whatever length of time we want to appoint us for.
We
did.
looks like Conservation Commission is full.
Oh, good. Good. Hopefully, they're all good environmentalists.
Okay.
All right,
Should we set another,
do we have another meeting?
we do not, as far as I know.
So I got, February
8th or the 15th, 8th,
15 would be better.
okay.
When is, February break? Does anybody have kids?
The 19th, the week of the 19th.
So that's
So we
the
can-
week before.
We can have leftover Valentine's candy.
That's true.
There is a home meeting,
On the 15th.
you know, we could do on the 29th, just to say to do something on the 29th.
Once every 4 years.
Not that it necessarily matters, but I'm gone from the 9th to the 15th, I think.
Of February?
Yeah.
All right, so we started with the 15th. Who cannot make it on the 15th?
I definitely will not be able to make
Oh,
it.
sorry, you
I'm
cannot.
coming back on, I
Alright,
definitely
so
not get it.
And then the next week is vacation. All right, so.
Is anyone
29th.
affected by vacation then?
I'm not.
You are here?
I have no idea.
So what, is that date okay then?
Second.
That was Thursday, the 22nd.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, let's do that one. And we'll have, hopefully, final draft of the, climate action plan roadmap.
And the planning board.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, 6 to 8 on the 22nd, and, Catherine, or who will look for our.
We'll plan it here and then we'll move up to town hall.
Yeah.
Try not to do that.
We prefer doing it here if possible.
Right.
All right.
The nomadic
check.
CAPC.
Yeah, this is, I like
It's their
this one.
tents.
So we'll try for PSAB, but we'll update. So February 22nd and 6 P.M. All right, so I think we just need a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved, so moved.
All right, Artie?
Yes.
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 And Chair.
I don't think about it. It's a need though. You don't have-
Question.
Cecilia's just
Now that we're.
Mama Warbucks.
Forget it.
Stevenson.